Last summer, well, some of you know that we add a new member to our family. The picture might be a little out of focus, but this is Y, the French word for Y. It's a miniature schnauzer. No, it's the picture, it's not a projector. And since he joined our family, we discovered that dogs are not just cute and good companions. They also need to walk regularly. So we walk every morning. We walk every lunchtime. We walk every evenings. And all those walks reminded me that this activity is more than good exercise for losing weight. It's also good for the intellect. You see, our distant ancestors, we're told they used to walk about 12 miles per day, and some theories suggest that walking led to the development of the human brain as we know it today. Walking produces chemical reaction in our brain, which can improve our thought patterns and our creativity. You probably had this experience, like many, that being stuck on a problem or being unable to see a solution to a dilemma, then you drop everything, you go outside for a walk, and then, bam, everything becomes crystal clear. And walking, like I was saying to the youth a few minutes ago, could also be seen as a spiritual discipline. Very often, spirituality is presented as something that have to be done in silence, stillness, which is totally excruciating for those of us who are extroverts. But I came around this very interesting book, Spirituality for Extroverts and Tips for Those Who Love Them. And in it, Nancy Reeves wrote a full chapters on what she calls moving prayer. And for Reeves, walking encouraged the congregants our harmony between mind, spirit, feelings, and body. We honor the sacredness of our physicality along with our intellect, emotions, and soul. And she reminds us that for some, walking is a way to keep our attention focused on God. Across ages and culture, the idea of a moving prayer has been lived under the form of pilgrimage. And we can even find mention of a pilgrimage in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, chapter 13. When Abraham is told by the Holy One, "Rise your eyes now and look at the place where you are. Northwards and southwards and eastwards and westwards. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth. So if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Rise up, walk through the length and the breadth of the land for which I will give you." Rise up, walk the land. Rise up, Abraham, and own that land. Rise up, Abraham, and be one with that land. Be one with the Holy One on this land. And pilgrimages are still very popular these days. A few years ago, my goddaughter walked the Camino de Santiago, also known as the Way of St. James. She began her trek in one of those small villages in France and journeyed for 2-3 weeks with fellow pilgrims. Personally, I never took part in an organized and structured pilgrimage. However, there's this place this small summer camp in the Eastern Township in the province of Quebec, where I used to go as a teenager, as a silly young adult. I felt very generous this week, okay? A place I'm still going as a young adult, and I'm still going these days as much as I can. And this camp is located on a lake. And every 3 or 4 years, I walk around this lake. Took about 2 hours. This is when I did it in 2010 with my 2 nephews, and that's last August when I did it. On this lake, there's no cottage, there's no accommodations of all sorts beside this camp. There's just a path, and on one side there's wood, and the other side there's water. And I try to walk that path. And when I'm taking this trek, I'm not necessarily doing it to be in communion with nature or to try to fill a void for my lost youth. I just go there to walk because somehow this is sacred ground for me. I go there to walk mostly alone, to be in the moment, without distraction, without cell phone signal, without objectives to achieve. I just put one foot in front of the other. I just walk. I just walk like those Aboriginal people from Australia who would walk by themselves for days or weeks in an experience they called walkabout. And as we're meeting the Israelites at the beginning of today's reading from the book of Exodus, the people of God have been walking for some time. They've been on the go. Moses had already returned from exile and confronted Pharaoh with his famous "let my people go." And Pharaoh refused it on several occasions, despite the numerous plagues sent by God. But eventually, Pharaoh caved and allowed the Israelites to leave Egypt. And so they go. However, the ruler changed his mind and decided that it would be nice to bring his own slave back home. And our understanding of what happened next is often very influenced by popular culture. Most of us have seen C.C.B. DeMille movie, The Ten Commandments, featuring Charlton Heston. And we have seen this famous scene. And Moses parted the sea in two, allowing the Israelites to walk on dry land between 2 huge walls of water, and then the water coming back, engulfing the Egyptian army, and all of this in only a few minutes. And this scene leaves us the impression that Israelites were never really in jeopardy because God controlled the element to protect and guide God's people. We come to believe that there were no other possible outcomes to this episode. It was settled even before it began. By the way, have you ever wondered what would happen if the parting of the Red Sea took place today? A bunch of people taking pictures with their cell phone and taking selfies. Well, Moses probably tweeting on their way home, hashtag promised land, hashtag salvation, hashtag party time. No, seriously. If we stop and try to be in the Israelites' sandals for just a few seconds, we would see the situation was far from being pleasant. It was, in fact, very terrifying because their journey to freedom was suddenly interrupted by a body of water. Some translation of the Bible call it Red Sea. Other translation prefer the Sea of Reeds. We will never be sure which one it is, but the bottom line is, a sea is a sea. And human beings are not supposed to be able to walk on the sea to reach the other shore, unless you are called Jesus, but that's another part of the Bible. So what should they do, since going forward is not an option? Going back on their tracks? Well, there was not a possibility, because the Egyptian army were gaining on them, and Pharaoh's force were mighty, fearless, and heavily armed. Trying to match the enemy blow for blow was not an option either. The Israelites found themselves in an impossible situation, stuck between the sea in front of them and the Egyptian army chasing them from behind. They had to choose between death by drowning and death by the sword. Going back to slavery and bondage, or starvation and thirst in the wilderness if they can get on the other side. Regardless of how they look at it, the Israelites were surrounded by only bad options everywhere. And we can surely relate it to that. How many times in our lives we felt that we have to choose between what is bad and what is even worse? How many times we felt caught in the middle of the great dilemma, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't? How many times we wish, or we felt we say, really, God, is that the best options I have in front of me? Because if it's a joke, I don't get it. No. How many times have we been unable to see a way out of problems other than panic, fear, and despair? How many times have we looked for a solution without finding any signs, any glimpse of hope around us? So out of options, the Israelite did what so many of us do and have done in our lives. They began to walk. They went forward with all their faith and also with all their doubts. They went forward with all their trust and also with all their fears. They went forward even if it did not make sense. They journeyed between liquid and solid, water and its absence of water, between a place to swim and a place to walk. They made their way by walking it. They began a journey hoping to meet God on their road. They made a leap of faith, or to be more accurate, a walk of faith. They trusted that God would be on their side wherever they go. There's something about walking alone with a dog without a particular destination, or on the same path than thousands and millions of people. Walking can help us to focus on attention on God. Walking can help us to surmount seamlessly impossible challenges. Walking can lead us outside of impossible dilemmas. All that is required is to be ready to put the first foot in the unknown and to continue to walk in the direction that God is calling us. All that is implied is to be courageous enough to go on and to keep walking. Amen.